Okay, so in the last video we had left off with me populating the two vectors in parallel with the data given in the exercise instructions in the table. We are also allowing the user to enter additional items, and we're putting those into the vectors at runtime. So let me run this and I'll demo for you. Okay, so welcome to the antique shop. Would you like to enter another item? And I will say yes. And what I have going on here is a user-driven loop that'll allow me to enter as many items as I want. Now I have found a couple of antiques. I'm going to enter this tiny lemon fork, whatever that is. Look, it's only $2.99. That's actually going to become our least expensive item in the vector. And then I'm going to also enter this steak knife for $55. So that is what I'll do here in my, as I'm running the program. I already have it. I'm not going to type these out. I can paste that. There we go. So there's the lemon fork, and that's going to be $2.99. Look at my the way I'm prompting the user. As soon as I enter the sterling silver lemon fork, it says, okay, enter the price for the sterling silver lemon fork. So I've kind of reiterated the item name back to the user as I'm asking for the price, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so there's the lemon fork. Yes, I would like to enter another. And this will be the steak knife. Again, I can just paste that in from somewhere else. And we said that was $55. Okay, and I'll say no at this point. I'm done. And okay, so let's take a look at our output here. And you know, I'll talk about creating this output as we get further into this exercise. But if you look at the data here, I'm really just looping through those vectors and displaying all of the items as well as their prices lined up nicely using setW. We'll talk about that technique as well. But look, so this is 12 items here with their corresponding prices. These were the original 10, and then these are the two that I populated at runtime. And that was, so those were the two that I populated with using the loop. And then and we'll talk about this later, but I got the average of all the items, all 12 items. I averaged them out, $72.23. And then I also found the most affordable, which was that lemon fork that I said was only $3, not even $3. And then the priciest item, most expensive item, is the Swan Silver Swan Salt Cellar for $179. Okay, so yeah, like I said, we'll talk about kind of the nuts and bolts of it in later videos. I'd like to just talk about getting additional items into the vectors using that user-driven loop. So what we have here are three variables: a character for enter another, yes or no, and a string to just kind of absorb the new item from the keyboard. That's a string. These are strings. They're strings and they have spaces, right? So we need to be mindful of that. So remember, cin does not like spaces, so we're going to be using getLine to get the new item name. None of these are just a single word. They all have spaces, so we need to be careful when we're getting input from the user that has spaces. So we'll talk about that. So that's a string. It's, very, very importantly, this is a string because I'm talking about an item which is a string. We have to fall back on our vector type, so that was a string. And then I have a float because I have the user entering a new price as well, and I have to absorb that with a float. I don't do int in this exercise because we're dealing with money, we're dealing with floats. In your real exam, it might very well be an int, hint. So you wouldn't want a float here. You would want whatever this is, whatever you're told, whatever data type you're told to create that vector as, then that's the data type you'll be using here. Okay, so I have a string and a float type, string and float types for my vectors, It's no coincidence that I have string and float types for these variables that are going to receive the new input for the items that are going to be appended to our vectors. Okay, so we have our welcome message, want to enter another, yes or no, and then we can absorb that Y or N with CN. You can just assume that the user is going to enter what we're telling them to. You don't have to worry about, oh, if they entered some crazy value. Let's just keep it simple and just assume they're going to enter a Y or an N as told. Now, this is something I don't think we have to, well, we haven't talked about this, and I don't know if I've seen this in your book or not. But we need to be careful here. You know what? Let me show you something. I'm going to comment this out and show you what happens if you skip this. This is cin.ignore. And this is going to flush the input buffer. Let me show you what I mean by that. Okay. Enter another item. Yeah, why, yes, I would like to. And I enter Y for yes. I pressed Y, and then I hit enter. And look at this. Enter item name. That ship has sailed. I can't even enter the item name. Now it's already asking me for the price. Okay, what happened there? What happened? So when I said yes to enter another item, I pressed two keys on the keyboard. One was the Y for yes, and then I hit the enter key. So the Y went into here as expected, but then that enter key lingered in the input buffer, and that became the next input for the item name. So the item name is the enter key, which I don't want. Okay, so that's where this cin.ignore comes in. It's like Drano. You know, if you think of the cin and cout, they're like pipes with data flowing through them. Okay, and you know, when I typed Y in the enter key, then I had Y and the enter key in the pipe. Y went into the place I wanted it to, into the enter another variable, but then that enter key was stuck in the pipe, like a hair clog in your drain or in your pipe under your sink. So cin.ignore is like Drano. It's going to flush out any residual characters in that pipe, and it flushes out the new line, which is the enter key, basically. So this is saying ignore or flush out 100 characters, or until you come across this guy, the new line, which is exactly who's in there causing the problem. So you'll need to use this when you're doing this looping technique, and this shows up on the actual exam as well. All right, so that's what that is for. Don't forget that. Okay, so we're saying while enter another is equal to little y or capital Y. Look at that double equal sign. Don't forget that, okay? So enter item name, and we're using getLine, right? getLine, not cin. Cin does not like spaces, okay? Using getLine, and that's going into the new item variable that I created, our string variable, okay? And then after that, I'm getting the new price, which is a float, right? That's going into the float variable new price. So I have the new item and the new price. Now that we can just use straight cin with the price. There are no spaces there. It's only when you're dealing with strings with spaces that you have to do getLine. And also I had mentioned, look at this is where we can say enter the price for, and then like kind of display the item name right back to them. This is just like just cascading a cout insertion operation. You know, it's not a big deal. We've done this type of thing before. Okay, so I have the new item and the new price and those variables, and then we can use the pushback function on those vectors to add those two data elements to the bottom, or append those to the end of the vectors. And that's it. So it's just those two lines using pushback to push those values onto the vectors, and they go to the bottom of the vectors. So they would go here, for example, there and there, appended to the bottom. So that's what pushback does. Very convenient in this case. And then having the user let us know if they want to enter another, yes or no. Again, the loop is set up to keep asking them while they keep saying yes. We'll just keep asking them for more items. Eventually, hopefully, they'll say no, and then we'll stop the loop. But look at this. Again, and if they're being asked to do that yes or no, that's where we have to do the cin.ignore. That's where that's where that enter key is going to linger like a hair clog in the pipe. And you have to do the cin.ignore. So cin.ignore in two places, all right? Anytime you're asking them yes or no in this program, you need to follow up with that drain opener, as we'll call it. Okay, so that's it for this video, and then in the next video I will talk about displaying some of that final output